Coming up in the news, the nation's leader telling United Nations colleagues less promises and more action needed to tackle climate change as the Bahamas continues to be impacted. Also, the Minister for Grand Bahama talks about the challenges that exist on Grand Bahama during her first contribution. And police officials warning that there is an uptick in stolen vehicles, but hear how motorists are making it easy for the thieves. The Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, starts now.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, Northern Edition.
Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Shashina Rule-Parkinson. As always, it is so great to have you with us. Topping news this evening, Prime Minister the Honorable Philip Davis addressing the COP26 Climate Change Conference in Scotland today. The nation's leader telling the world that time is running out on the issue of climate change and that the Bahamas is at the mercy of the action or inaction of developed countries. The nation's leader, Prime Minister the Honorable Philip Davis, telling United Nations colleagues that they must do their part to ensure that the COP26 gathering succeeds in a way that the prior 25 did not. This as he gave a compelling account of how climate change has and continues to impact this country.
We in the Bahamas will do what we can, but the limits of our nation's effort can accomplish are stark. We cannot outrun your carbon emissions. We cannot outrun the hurricanes, which are growing more powerful. And we cannot outrun rising sea levels as our islands disappear beneath the seas.
Using Hurricane Dorian as an example of climate change, Davis bravely admitted that it is still unknown how many persons died as a result of the catastrophic storm, adding that even now some people still tremble at the sound of rain. He says more must be done because change is urgently needed.
But today we can still do something. As I said to the General Assembly of the United Nations in September, you will only be safe when we are all safe. We are out of time, colleagues. A recent study declared that the Bahamas had the cleanest air in the world. Other studies have shown that our distinctive, beautiful aquamarine seas are a magnificent carbon sink.
The nation's leader also making it clear that the Bahamas has now or ever been the problem of climate change, but we are forced to pay the price. He says promises are easy, but action at this point is required.
Action, specific concrete policy changes, is a lot harder. Action requires courage. Every leader before us has postponed until tomorrow what needed to happen yesterday. And now tomorrow is here today, and countries like mine are out of time. Your support by financing and technology transfer are needed urgently so we can rebuild for resilience.
The Prime Minister also shares what happens without action or change.
If we are lucky, we will become refugees. Without change, if we are unlucky, then we will be left to the mercy of future Hurricane Dorians. More of my people will die. More will be left traumatized and homeless. People will be forced to flee, but flee to where?
So what is needed? Davis says support through financing and technology transfer. He wrapped up with this impassioned plea.
Please, do what is needed, not what you can get away with. Turn promises and agreements into action. Don't hide behind buzzwords and hazy assurances. Don't let the failures of the past limit our ambition for the present. Have the courage to acknowledge that failure today will lead directly to destruction for humanity tomorrow.
Meantime, a local environmentalist lending support to the Prime Minister's plea for help, calling on world leaders at the conference to act in the interest of small island developing states. She says leaders must deal with the issue of climate change before it's too late. Italia Hall picks up the story.
The COP26 Climate Change Conference is underway in Glasgow, Scotland. The conference attracting many leaders from across the world. Among those leaders, Prime Minister the Honorable Philip Davis. the Prime Minister making his contribution on Tuesday, noting that time is of the essence as it relates to climate change. Environmentalist Gail Woon agrees. She says the Bahamas must make a strong case as the country cannot experience another catastrophic hurricane.
We can't do another 3 days of 25-foot high storm surges that wipe away settlements and buildings and carry away people. We just can't do it. So the Bahamian leaders plus all of the world's global leaders have to come together, and we don't have any more time. They've said it's code red. Code red is the highest warning, and if we don't cut fossil fuel emissions by 50% or more by 2030, we won't be able to stop the temperatures from rising.
She says every Bahamian has a role to play as well and should pay attention to the possible effects of climate change.
One of the big things that our country and everyone in it should be aware of is that climate change causes sea level rise. Sea level rise is going to be catastrophic for the Bahamas because we're one of the top 10 countries to be the first to go underwater when the sea levels rise. Also, Miami is going to disappear under the water. So we really need to hope and pray that those world leaders do what they're supposed to do at COP26, because our country's at stake.
And if business continues as usual, she says it will have a catastrophic impact on the country. She believes there are steps that individuals can take to reduce the risks of climate change.
You can drive less. You can maybe invest in an electric car. I have a friend who's driving one now in Freeport. And definitely cut your fossil fuel use. So if you can minimize your electricity that you use in your home, maybe change the thermostat on your air conditioner, maybe have a switch on your hot water heater so you only turn it on when you need to use hot water. Don't have it hot all the time.
Italia Hall, ZNS Network News.
The Minister for Grand Bahama and Member of Parliament for Pine Ridge, the Honorable Ginger Moxie, making her first contribution in Parliament on Monday. The minister sharing some of the challenges that exist on Grand Bahama and says the government is fully committed to bringing new life to the nation's second city. Here again is Italia Hall.
Minister for Grand Bahama, the Honorable Ginger Moxie, making her inaugural contribution in the House of Assembly on Monday afternoon. Moxie noting some of the many challenges that Grand Bahama is currently facing. Moxie says she is aware of the work that needs to be done to recover, rebuild, and revolutionize the island and economy.
I pledge to do the people's business and to utilize every resource at my disposal to get the job done. Deputy Speaker, I believe in partnerships for development, and in order to truly move Grand Bahama forward, this will be the philosophy by which I serve. These partnerships, a collaborative effort, calls for unity, as we are all in this together.
As it relates to tourism on Grand Bahama, she says the Minister of Tourism and Aviation is committed to finding a solution for the Grand Lucine Resort, and knows that under her watch, downtown Freeport will come alive again.
It will come alive to bring real culture into the city. It will allow immersive, authentic experiences that tell the Bahamian story. The farmers market will offer products that makes tourists want to come. All stalls will become opened to offer Bahamian food and products.
Minister Moxie says the government pledges to expedite the development of an international airport on Grand Bahama through a public-private partnership.
This is welcome news for the people of Grand Bahama, as we have not had a fully functioning airport since the passage of Hurricane Dorian. The people are looking forward to a redevelopment airport with our much-needed pre-clearance facilities. As you honorable members have all heard, the member for the Exumas and Ragged Island has assured us that this is a priority under his portfolio.
Additionally, the Minister of Grand Bahama assures that the government is committed to providing a new hospital on the island. And as for the maritime industry,
in the maritime industry, Bahamian entrepreneur and Pine Ridge businessman Mr. Albert Hepburn is doing something amazing. He has created a maritime training institute to introduce the world of maritime to the young people of Grand Bahama. I applaud Mr. Hepburn for this exciting initiative and have partnered with him for a program called Maritime 101. Deputy Speaker, while I am on the topic of maritime, I beg leave to congratulate Coral Vida, a Grand Bahama enterprise, on winning Earthshot Prize, a global climate change project established by the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge.
It was also announced that a new sporting facility and shelter will be constructed,
which will not only service local athletes, but will attract and house world-class events. It will be a new day for sports and for tourism on our island.
The Minister for Grand Bahama says this northern island is experiencing tremendous economic challenges. Nevertheless, the Davis administration will put the Bahamas back on the right track by executing goals and putting Bahamians first. It's Talia Hall, ZNS Network News.
Thank you, Tally. Switching gears now, the Bahamas Agricultural Health and Food Safety Authority issuing an update on an international onion recall. The release is a follow-up to an ongoing trace-back investigation regarding a multi-state outbreak of Salmonella Aaronian infections linked to whole, fresh onions distributed throughout the United States. Leading the investigations are the FDA and CDC that have identified 2 suppliers linked to the affected onions, which were imported from the state of Chihuahua, Mexico. Now, most persons who show symptoms of a salmonella infection develop diarrhea, fever, and abdominal cramps. More severe cases may include a high fever, aches, headaches, a rash, blood in the urine or stool, and in some cases may be fatal. If you or anyone in your family becomes ill as a result of consuming any potentially contaminated onions, you must contact the nearest health professional and inform the Ministry of Health Surveillance Unit. Now, from the crime beat, police officials are sending a stern warning to motorists on Grand Bahama to become more safety conscious and not facilitate what is called a crime of opportunity, noting that there has been an uptick in stolen vehicles. Police say vehicle owners themselves can turn the situation around. Sergeant 1324 McSayers, attached to the traffic department, says that there is an uptick in car theft on Grand Bahama, but it is mainly due to motorists leaving keys in the vehicles.
During this Yuletide season, and it's fast approaching, we just want you to be aware that it doesn't make any sense to leave the vehicle running. Persons may walk past, see it running, jump into it, and go for a joyride. Then again, they may use it to commit some type of offenses.
He says in the past few weeks, these types of incidents have been reported to the police, adding that the vehicles targeted have been parked at business establishments as well as in residential areas.
We're saying that if persons may just be walking around and see that a vehicle with the keys in it, it may not be on, then again it may be on. They may just jump into it, go for a joyride. Then it puts a extra burden on the police in regards to trying to track down this vehicle. Whereas if you assist us where you do not leave the vehicle running, it helps us greatly.
Additionally, Sergeant Sayers confirms that an alleged mental patient was the perpetrator in a recent incident.
That incident, yes, it was where alleged mental patient was walking and noticed that a vehicle was running with the keys in it. The person took the vehicle for a little joyride, and at the end of the day, he brought the vehicle to the police station. So even the mental patient has some aware of what's going on, and at the end of the day, he secured the vehicle at the police headquarters. And I am extremely glad that he did that, because imagine if that was someone else. They could have used that vehicle, like I said, to commit any type of criminal offense.
Now, he says that leaving your keys in your ignition and your car running is also an offense under the Road Traffic Act, and that carries a fine of up to $100. 44 migrants of mixed nationalities handed over to immigration officials on Grand Bahama over the weekend. The migrants were picked up by the U.S. Coast Guard and transported to the Lucaya Harbor. The group comprised of Romanians, Colombians, Ecuadorians, Cubans, Jamaicans, and Haitians. They all had one thing in common, and that was the desire to be smuggled into the United States by boat. There were 3 minors in the group. 2 of them were traveling in the company of their mothers. Yesterday, the group appeared before Magistrate LaQuay Lang and charged with illegal embarkation, to which they pled guilty and were fined $300 each, or in default, serve a custodial sentence of 3 months at the Bahamas Department of Corrections. Now, the fines were paid and the migrants were handed back to immigration to be transported to New Providence to the detention center until arrangements can be made for deportation. That's going to take us to our first break. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this.